Hello. Boyd, Conklin, 8 Water Street.
Hang on a minute.
Boyd, we're not ready to begin yet. The chair is responsible
Yeah.
for organizing who gets to speak.
In regards, well, given that no one else is ready yet, but I will read the notice relative to citizens' requests. Or if you have it in front of you, perhaps you can read it.
I can read.
Okay.
If you want. Yeah, sure. Okay. So as a reminder, we have a policy regarding citizens' requests, and some important pieces of the policy include that you must be a current resident of Westborough. Speakers are allowed to address the school committee about issues that are within the school committee's purview. Each speaker will be allowed up to 3 minutes to speak to the school committee, and written comments longer than 3 minutes may be presented to the presiding chair before or after the meeting. And you're welcome to hand additional comments to us in writing now, or you can certainly email them later. Public comment by residents at this meeting is not a discussion, debate, or dialogue between individuals and the school committee. It is an individual's opportunity to express an opinion on issues within the school committee's authority, and our role is to listen carefully to what you share with us tonight. Clapping, cheering, calling out, or any other noise following a speaker is not allowed. Additionally, I'd like to remind members of the school committee that when making a point of order, please address your concern to the chair. And so can I see a show of hands, please, of everyone who wants to speak tonight at citizens' requests? So 2, 3, 4. Okay, so you can decide the...
Okay, well, since Boyd is sitting there, we might as well start with Boyd.
Sure.
And then we'll go from front of the hall to the back of the hall in that order. Thank you. Go ahead.
Boyd, Conklin, 8 Water Street. Okay, groomers. Comprehensive sex education. 10-alarm groomer fire territory. Expanding surveillance, i.e. data, to include pleasure. Point number 4 of the 7 essential components of comprehensive sexual education. Guttmacher.org cites default files report downloads, demystifying data handouts, _0.pdf. There are several learning recommendations related to pleasure in the UNESCO technical guidance, including describe ways that human beings feel pleasure from physical contact, to example, kissing, touching, caressing, sexual contact throughout their life, which is a learning objective for children in the age 9 to 12 years. Quote, state that sexual feelings, fantasies, and desires are natural and not shameful and occur throughout life, end quote, which is a learning objective for those 12 to 15 years. Quote, understand that sexual stimulation involves physical and psychological aspects, and people respond in different ways at different times, end quote, which is a learning objective for those aged 12 to 15 years, and which includes key areas for those ages 15 and older that, quote, engaging in sexual behaviors should feel pleasurable and comes with associated responsibility for one's health and well-being, end quote. Friendship, love, and romantic relationships, UNESCO guidelines, 1 and 4 topics on the topics of relationships. There are 14 objectives related to friendship, love, and romantic relationships for children aged 5 to 8 years old. 10 objectives for age 9 to 12, et cetera, et cetera. Stop talking to kids about whether or not sex is pleasurable. This is not okay. This needs to stop. Groomer alarm is going off. Understanding more than sexual intercourse. Well, this is why they are teaching kids about having orgasm through anal sex in the school. Story broke in the last 2 weeks. The book Gender Queer, a central tome for groomer schools like Westborough. Sexuality is a healthy and normal part of everybody's life. Well, you know, no. Everybody's adult life, but you don't say that, do you? Generative needs, top down, bottom up. You guys have no responsibility. The needs of youth, you run your surveys to create them. Schools give very basic medical and biological information, and if you need additional information, they should be talking to their parents. Navigate relationships, no. Find additional resources for health
Boyd,
and
you have
services,
had
no.
your 3 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Sir?
Ted Gilbert, 26 Charles Street, Westborough. Whoa, sorry. Today we are told that male and female are one and the same. This denial of male-female differences has led to the astonishing belief that men and women are not born male or female. They are whatever gender they say they are. Facebook went so far as to offer its users over 50 genders to choose from. The idea that gender identification is now a personal choice might sound enlightened to some, but it's actually a very anti-scientific view of one of the essential facts of life. Men and women are inherently different. Their brains are different, their hormones are different, their chromosomes are different, and of course their bodies are different. No amount of peer-reviewed papers from gender studies departments can change this. But that won't stop the progressive elites who run our universities, news media, many of our biggest companies, and even our high schools and elementary schools from trying. For their efforts, women will pay an especially high price. That's because the men and women are the same argument invariably leads women to be judged against a male standard. Ironically, this quest for sameness is occurring at a time when science is telling us more emphatically than ever that we are different. So what your grandmother took for granted, men and women are different, science now confirms. For the tiny percentage of people who experience gender dysphoria, we should have nothing but compassion. We should do everything we can to help them or protect their dignity, but we don't need to overturn biologically defined sex differences to do so. But that's what's happening. Using the wrong pronoun at the office might get you fired. In Canada, it might land you in court. In mixed martial arts, as we have seen, it can lead to getting your head bashed in. Apparently, this is a small price to pay in a world where we must all genuflect to political correctness, such as biological sex is in black and white. But in virtually every instance, it is. The longer we allow the obvious to go unstated and undefended, the worse it will be for boys and girls and for men and women, but especially for women. The sexes are different. Rather than trying to quash this reality, which can only lead to more needless confusion and suffering, not less, we should step back and marvel at it and enjoy it. Male-female differences are among the most wonderful things in life.
Thank you. Okay. Please come forward.
Good evening. Paula Matthew, 20 Andrews Road. This is for Westborough School Committee and educators, and we represent a larger contingency of parents, over 30 families in town. So, Westborough students, are they falling among the stars or down a dark, deep hole? There is a time when the roles of parents and the roles of a teacher were well defined. Parents were responsible for the moral upbringing of their children, and teachers were responsible for instruction in academics, leaving the children with the responsibility to learn, to develop their abilities, and to think critically. Upon completion of their education, students had the knowledge and skill set to succeed as adults. Living in the best country in the world, they could reach for the moon and fall among the stars. Their future held promise. Parent, teacher, and student knew their places in the educational arena. Today, the roles appear convoluted, causing chaos and confusion for the child. Have parents relinquished their parental responsibilities, allowing schools to assume them? Or have schools overstepped their bounds, diminishing the parent's role? Neither are blameless, but herein lies the dilemma. What happens when there is a philosophical misalignment in values between home and school? What are the ramifications to the psyche of a child when these opposing values collide? Is it not essential that parent and teacher share the same standards for the mental and emotional health of a child? With education today, many parents nationwide see academics taking a backseat to ideologies disguised as social, emotional learning and identity. Instead of learning the ABCs of success, students are learning DEI and CRT, ideologies that instill confusion and doubt. Instead of a focus on intellectual discourse, the focus is on concepts such as identity and diversity, which have the common effect of instilling a sense of division rather than unity. Instead of reinforcing the values of this nation, which was founded under the motto, E pluribus unum, out of many, one, educators are undermining these values, and in doing so, they are undermining parents and splintering the family unit. For the sake of all our children, it is imperative that common ground be found, that parent and teachers work together for the health and well-being of all children, that education takes precedent over cultural ideologies that come and go. Otherwise, future generations will be fraught with insecurities, robbed of a productive adulthood, and affected by mental health and substance abuse issues. It is time to assess the impact of this diversity indoctrination, to question schools' role in the student's personal life, and to affirm the parents' role in education, so that children can fulfill their role as learners and become healthy, well-adjusted adults with the capabilities to reach for that moon.
Are you speaking to the same point, sir?
I am. Yes, I am. Can you hear me? So Mike Noonan, 4 Rosewood Place. I want to add some personal perspective to what Paula was commenting on. My wife and I moved to Westborough 20 years ago, and one of the things that attracted us to...
Give your name and address, please.
Sure. Mike Noonan, 4 Rosewood Place. When we moved here 20 years ago, we were attracted in large part to the high quality of the school system. But, you know, when we think about the experience that our kids have had in the last few years, I have one child who's a junior in the high school, I have 2 freshmen in the high school. There's a sense that things have shifted. And when my wife and I talk about their high school experience, what we talk about now is from a mental health perspective, getting our kids through the Westborough schools in one piece. And I think that's unfortunate for a couple of reasons. First of all, because these are important years for our kids academically. And second of all, because I think of all the parents and kids coming in behind them who maybe have a preconceived notion about what the Westborough schools are all about that doesn't align with reality. Because I can tell you that from a personal perspective, that has been my experience over the last few years. And I think the word that I would use to describe this is the word distracted. We seem, as Paula noted, to be distracted by things that have nothing to do with academics, things that are not advancing the education of our students in a school system that, by all indications, is not racist and never has been systemically racist. So the question is, from a value perspective, where does DEI fall? Where does CRT fall? What is it getting us? Where is it getting us? My kids took a course last year at Gibbons called Global Issues. It was kind of a deceptively named class. And I thought it was a social studies class. But it turned out that it was kind of a laboratory for indoctrination, because what my kids were learning in that class was all about the isms: classism, racism, gender. They were doing readings from Ibram Kendi, who was a quote-unquote philosopher, whose guiding principle is that past discrimination against blacks can only be remedied by future discrimination against whites. I can't speak for other parents, but from my perspective as a parent of 3 kids in this school, I don't want my kids to learn those things. And at the very least, I want to know that they're learning those things. I see transgender flags in the high school. I see a poster in the high school that talks about the evil chapters in American history. And I ask myself, why? What is this getting us? We see that the needle of academic attainment in the Westborough schools is starting to trail off. And we certainly see that mental health issues are skyrocketing. And when my kids come home from school, my 3 kids come home from school every day, that's exactly what I hear them talking about. Who's having issues with depression, who's having issues with anxiety, and all the rest. These weren't things that when I was in school we talked about or dealt with. When I was in school, we weren't being indoctrinated, we weren't being parented, we were in school to get an education.
Thank you. Your 3 minutes are up.
I'm Susan Reynolds from 50 Upton Road, and I'm speaking for other parents who won't speak. As concerned parents who profoundly care for the mental and emotional well-being of our children, we've come to the conclusion that our school system has lost its way and is heading down a very dangerous path. It is time to consider the need to, 1, restore reason and sound judgment. When a parent concerned with pornographic or racist material is accused of banning books, there is something inherently wrong. Children are dependents for a reason, and until they are 18, a parent has the responsibility to protect them from those things which do harm. Although some see no harm in sexualizing young children, a majority of parents do see the harm. This constant and relentless focus on the adult issues of gender, sex, race, and class is not central to education and not appropriate for children. Not only is this nation's moral compass slipping, it's losing empathy and compassion for differing points of view on these ideologies. It is no surprise then that such issues contribute to the decline in the mental health of our children. There is a dire need for rational, compassionate conversation among adults whose goal it is to do the very best for every child's well-being and to work together to realize those goals. Number 2, restore freedom of speech and transparency. Dissenting voices are currently silenced. From emails to social media outlets, proponents of these ideologies do an incredible job to either vilify those with differing views or minimize their ability to be heard. Many in Westborough remain silent because of this. More recently, when others voiced opposition to the masking of children and its disastrous effects, they were silenced. Those loud voices that claim to be against bullying do a superb job of bullying, which prevents balanced debate and discussion. Differing views should be welcomed. Censorship and restriction of free speech should not be. Let's end censorship, and transparency will follow. In closing, we have veered off America's path of freedoms and values. We, the parents, hope to avoid falling into an abyss by getting back on the right path of education that promotes critical thinking and debate. Except for the ignorant few, we are not a racist nation and most certainly not a racist town. Westborough is a very culturally diverse community. Stop punishing our children for the sins of their ancestors and start celebrating the life we share. Stop distorting education, start improving it. Stop preaching diversity, start promoting unity. Stop adding to the mental health issues, start addressing the issues that are creating them. Cultural ideologies that blur the role of parents and teachers must be examined. No government money and mandates should condemn our child to a life that questions their self-worth and their gender identity. Again, we want answers to these questions, and we request a clearly defined policy allowing all parents to feel safe bringing forth all concerns without fear of retributions from others in the town.
Thank you.
Okay. We do have copies of this, which I'll be happy to pass to everyone, and we appreciate that the principals are here too.
I believe we have one more person who wishes to speak. Yes.
Excuse me? Oh.
Perhaps two.
Mike Matthew, Westborough, 20 Andrews Road. I have a question of all of you. Why do you give people 3 minutes to talk and then cut them off? I think that's pretty rude. I think
It's our policy, sir.
Yeah, but it doesn't need to be your policy. If somebody's talking and you cut them off, and you cut them off, wait a minute, I'm talking, Steve, and you cut them off, that is very
You don't
rude
have a right
and
to speak
discourteous.
before this committee except by virtue of the chair of the committee.
Yes, well, no, I'm a taxpayer in town,
You're welcome.
and I have a right to talk, and you don't have a right to cut me
Not
off.
in this forum, sir.
Sorry, I disagree with you. I think
Well,
that
that's
more
okay.
respect needs to be given to us as people, and you need to listen to us and not cut us off after 3 minutes. Thank you.
That was less than 3 minutes. Sir?
Nadio Nascondili, I live on Warren Street. My concern is that my 3-year-old daughter was in your early education center, And she brought home a report card. Well, not a report card. It's one of those we can't give a 3-year-old a report card, but it was an update on how she's doing. And she's graded on diversity, okay? Now, I've been told by people on this board that that doesn't happen. I've got the report card. I spoke to this principal, and she told me that white people won't understand. Exact words from her, okay? I wouldn't be here and telling you this if it didn't happen. It did. My child's biracial. Which part of her won't understand? It's ridiculous. It's become an insane asylum in the schools. And if you guys are letting this happen and you know about it, then you should all be stripped out of your positions and someone else kind of come in and take your place, because this is not right. You're dealing with people's children. They raised them, not you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, thank you. We'll proceed with our agenda.